turn on their microphone?
Gotta be green. Light touch in the bottom one.
Okay, the first thing on the agenda tonight is appointment of the chairman and vice chairman for our committee. And you have a reference, we had a little discussion in the last meeting about how to vote. I have a couple emails here from the League of Minnesota City, so it has to be an open ballot. So we're open for motions for chairman.
Dale Ames.
Okay, do we have a second to that?
Yes, I second that.
Okay, do we have a second? Do we have any other motions? Do we have any other motions for chairman? Okay, we'll call them closed. We'll call for the vote. I guess it's a white ballot, but all in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed, motion carried. Now we'll have for vice chairman. I'll make a motion for Barry. He was our vice chairman before, so. Somebody like to second it?
I'll second it.
Okay, the motion been made, second. Any further discussion? Is there, I'm gonna ask for, before I clarify the motion, is there anybody else that we wanna make, put on the ballot with him? Seeing none, call it closed, we'll vote on it. All in favor of Barry for vice chairman, say aye.
Aye.
Okay, the next thing we're gonna do is, amend tonight's meeting agenda, on January 23rd, 2018. Anybody like to make this motion?
So moved.
Okay, who made it?
I did.
Oh, you did, okay. Do this right. Commissioner Adler made the motion. Do we have a second?
I'll second.
Okay, Commissioner Moen seconded it. Any discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. The next thing is to approve the November 28th, 2017 Planning and Zoning Meeting Minutes. That was November. Do we have a motion for this?
I'll make a motion to approve it.
Commissioner Moen made the motion. Do we have a second?
I'll second it.
Commissioner
Alders?
Alders, I gotta get this name down. He's new.
Boom. Got it, Cal.
Any discussion? All in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carried. Next, we'll have the clerk do the roll call.
Dale,
Here.
Jeff,
Here.
Kelly,
Here.
Barry, Jason,
Here.
Kristen,
Here.
Harold,
Here.
and Elizabeth. Here.
Okay, the next thing we're gonna have to do, the clerk read the meeting policy.
The agenda printed or amended will be followed, so all necessary actions by the commission will be addressed. The agenda can be amended by proper motion. Business from the floor is welcome and allotted for on our agenda. When comments from the floor are made, you must first be recognized by the chair. Second, state your name and address for the record. And third, you'll have no more than 3 minutes to state your comment or concerns. There are copies of the agenda available at the back of the table. Please sign in and please turn your cell phones off.
Okay, the next thing, is there anybody with any floor items? Anybody in the floor, has a floor item? Seeing none, we'll go to the next thing, is this is for discussion only, a proposed lot split request by Jeff Anderson at 6538 213th Avenue for his 18.5 acres property, which may involve a flag lot required processing of a cup and approval by the city council. The PIN number is 15-33-25-11-005. Okay, Mr. Anderson, would you speak up, stand up there and,
Yeah, I'm here just to propose a lot split that will need a conditional use permit for the flag lot because of difficulties due to natural features. And I feel I can meet all the flag lot standards that you guys have listed. And whatever suggestions you have, I had 3 proposals.
I did go over there and look at it today, there's a lot of lowland involved in there too. Regardless of what, when you look at it, he's gonna have to have a flag lot. We did look at another area, flag could come in between the 2 lots there and go back there, but that'd be a flag lot also. That'd be north of the pole building he's got there.
Because I probably have,
Isn't concept 2 a non-flag lot concept?
Yes, that shows, concept 2 shows conformance with the ordinance,
the 150 feet.
150 feet of frontage. He, also concept 3 shows 150 feet of frontage, but also keeps the flag lot access. Mr. Anderson would prefer to keep a bigger chunk of land for himself at the present time and then possibly split later, as opposed to concept 2 where the division kind of splits the 2 new lots. But we can just open it up for discussion. He is looking for feedback, so the most important things are that he does meet the criteria outlined in the ordinance. You have to determine whether or not he's got the practical difficulties, and those can be related to terrain or the shape of the lot or adjoining streets. He does have some steep topography along Basalt Street, and there is some difficulty in realigning the driveway in that he would be taking down a lot of trees and having to regrade. There is about a 10 to 12 foot drop in that center portion of Basalt there next to the road. And then if we cross on the south side, necessitates crossing the ditch or the wetland area there. So he's just looking for some guidance as to what your feeling is here.
That little plot, or that little, when you look at the concept 3 there, that little pie up there, that wouldn't, it'd still be a flag lot with that little pie on there, wouldn't it?
Yeah, technically I would consider it a flag lot. I mean, even though you've got the 150 feet of frontage, it narrows down before you get to where the lot width is. But at the same token, when you look at concept 2 and you have the 150 feet, it's still really not a usable area, the front part. So we measure the lot width where the house is sitting, and he has plenty of width there. He's got more than 300 where the house is. So I'm not real concerned about that. If it were a vacant lot and it didn't have a home on it yet, we would have to be concerned about where placement of that would be. But since we already know that, and we have our lot width that we need at the building setback point, it's kind of a technicality as to whether you want him to meet the 150 feet or a lesser width for access.
What Mr. Anderson's trying to do here is save that pole pole building to go along with a new house.
Yeah.
And that's what it's all about, why he doesn't want that to go with the old house.
What's your preference? I mean, if you had to pick one?
Well, the first proposal, because then I would be able to keep enough acreage where in the future I could sell another lot on the south end of the property, and I could still maintain the 5 acres that I would need to have that pole barn. And I think that would leave me with another probably 4+ acres if I want to sell another lot in the future.
Or he could split them both now and just hold on to them until he decided to sell later.
Another question is, what didn't you like about the concept 2 then? What was your thoughts on that?
Well, it was more the slope of the hill, because everything drains from, say, if you're looking at the picture to the left, everything's going downhill, and there's all kinds of trees that would have to be cut just to put a driveway in. And I already have a perfectly good driveway that doesn't need any work or anything. I just hate to cut down a bunch of trees and then bring in a bunch of fill and, disturb the natural setup that it is now. Because it works out, if there ever was another lot sold, it's a perfect walkout to where everything would, they wouldn't have to disturb anything in the back there, so everything could stay wooded like it is now.
That would still be a flag lot, right, Liz? Even on number 2.
No, number 2 has 150 feet of frontage.
Oh, it does have 150.
Yeah.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes.
is that 66 feet, is that the minimum width for the flag, or?
Well, it is, we did allow, in cases such as this, to go as low as 33 feet when there's no possible future street extension. But he's got enough space here, and he wants to maintain those evergreen trees and include those in the flag lot frontage. So it is about 66 or 70 feet
To keep that whole driveway on that?
to keep that whole thing, right, with the trees.
Then I want to plant a bunch of pine trees to kind of divide the lots, so when they come in, it basically I'd run them all the way along the pole barn there just to, divide things. And then also, as far as 3, where it shows it's flaring out, I don't know if that makes any difference to get your 150 feet on the road. If that's any kind of a concern, I mean, I have no problem with that. Like I told Liz, I said I could even do a 90 and run it out if you wanted it after the pole barn and give them 150 feet there.
Yeah, he's talking about where it flares out to be 150 along the 213th.
But it would still be a flag lot.
Yeah.
Well, it really is, I mean,
Yeah.
it really is, yeah, because I don't think there's I don't think you gain anything by flaring it out there at the end.
If you were to build a house, would you have a new driveway off of the salt then, or what would you do for yours?
Yeah, I would, I'd also be up closer to the salt. And I'd have a driveway coming in right from there. A little bit north of the pole barn, that's pretty much level and up on top of the hill there, and then everything starts sloping once you get past the pole barn.
So concept 3's got the red box, is that the house location? Is that what that is? So it's proposed
Approximately,
roughly?
Yeah.
roughly, yeah. Concept 3.
So you explained to me where you said the proposed driveway would then be if you did the splits. Where would you propose your driveway for the new home? I didn't follow you.
The new home, the driveway would come in like just to the left where the pole barn is.
Off
Straight out to
Basalt?
Basalt there, yeah, would come in there, and then the house would be, you know, just off of Basalt there.
So the front door would kind of face Basalt and your garage would face Basalt in the new
Yeah, well,
house?
I kinda wanna turn it to try to get some southern exposure,
Okay, oh, okay,
but otherwise the driveway would come in, and the garage would be on the end,
Yeah.
where you would come in.
Okay. Gotcha.
You'd have the driveway come right into the garage, and the house would come after that.
To clarify it again, you say that concept 2, that he has 150 feet, and so there would be no problem as far as a flag lot. That would not be a flag lot.
That would not be a flag lot, but he would have to realign the driveway. It would follow the topography to the east, and then you see where it would have to climb about 10 or 12 feet before it got to Basalt. And that was his greatest concern, was that steep slope and trying to get up and have a view, you know, both ways on Basalt before pulling out and that kind of thing.
Yeah, 'cause I don't know if your readings are accurate, but to me, it seems like it's more like 20 feet or, you know, I mean, it's a pretty good slope in that one area where it really drops off there. I mean, it starts coming out farther down because the salt starts going downhill, but then you're getting back into the wetlands and stuff. You're not gonna wanna cross over or anything like that to put a driveway down in the corner, on the south end.
Well, personally, I don't think a hill is a problem. If you look over there in Hillendale, where some of the driveways are really up, they're steeper than that's there. I know it's not nice to have that kind of driveway, but when you look over there what they got in Hillendale.
Yeah, my biggest concern is just having to cut down a bunch more trees and like the way it is now, because like I was saying to you, I've finally got a bunch of oaks that are starting to come in there that I'd like to see them have a chance to take off. Because that whole corner is basically just solid with oaks. Because I had a tree guy come on, he said, yeah, you basically start out with what you have now, the popples and birch. As we were walking around, he was saying, yeah, look, and he was showing me and I was showing him where the oaks come in after, and then they pretty much take over everything else. He said, not in your lifetime, but 40 years down the road, this whole area is gonna be nothing but big oak trees.
Harold, you're not saying much. What do you think?
I don't know. There's a lot of, after looking at that Hillendale stuff,
Well, there's some things over there in Hillendale that's pretty bad.
no, that's ragged.
You're familiar with that, aren't you?
Pardon me?
You're familiar with them hills
Oh,
over?
yes, yes.
They're a lot worse than this, aren't they?
Yeah, some of the driveways in there, yeah, and slopes are,
Especially that one right on the St. Francis border there, that's a big one. Well, that's the only way you could do it is on concept 2 without a flag lot.
Mr. Chair,
Yes, Mayor.
well, I know over in the Hillendale area there, we do have some pretty steep driveways. I also think we should learn our lesson from some of those. Some of
I
those
wouldn't
are
encourage
really
it
wicked. I wouldn't want to use those as a model of what we want. Some of those we tolerated, but they're really not a good setup for
And you do have a point, going out on that road up there, coming up that hill to be able to
So yeah, that's my concern is,
stop.
especially if it's slippery or icy, you come up and you go to stop to check for traffic and all of a sudden you're just sitting there spinning or you're sliding backwards. You know, just trying to get up on that thing. Whereas the driveway that exists now is as level as can be.
Well, all I can say is, we can't give you a decision one way or the other tonight, but, if you go with flag lot, it'd have to come to public hearing, then the decision would have to be made whether,
If you go with concept one, does the 5 acre lot that would be sold at a later date have the same driveway issue potential?
No, because it's actually, once you get down in the lower south corner, it gets where it's not,
Levels out?
yeah, it levels out more, cause like I said, once you get to about, the south end of the pole barn, or probably actually about where she drove or drew the, future driveway for the second one, it starts to go downhill. So once you get down a ways, it pretty much levels out.
Okay,
So if somebody was to build a house, like I said, it's a good walkout because it slopes, but you could just put in a foundation and bring in some fill. And you'd have a perfect walkout and you'd be right level
with the street.
with the street right now.
really basically what he's looking at now is just a lot split. But he's planning for the future, which a lot of people don't do,
Yeah, that's what it is. She said, you know, if you're gonna
do it right.
do everything, save everybody a lot of time.
What does your neighbor think about having a driveway that would be a flag lot next to them there?
Well, they don't have any problem with it because we have such a buffer zone with pine trees in between there right now. It's like you can't even see each other when I'm driving in and out. You can maybe at night see a little bit of lights if you're coming in, but otherwise, you know, there's just thick pine trees all the way in between.
Mr. Chair,
Yes.
I think because the existing driveway's already there, it's probably less of an issue to that neighbor. As opposed to creating a flag lot that, you know, is brand new without a home on it.
Any other discussion? Seeing none, that's about all we can do is you'll have to make a decision which way you want to go. If you wanted to go with that as a flag lot, you'd have to get a CUP, right?
Correct. Does the commission feel that there's some practical difficulties there? Or not?
Mr. Chair,
Yes,
I think
Mayor.
that's why Mr. Anderson's here
Yeah.
today, to say, what does the commission think of these? Would the commission be amenable to recommending to the council a flag lot configuration like one? He's looking for feedback to know where to put his energies. What do you guys think?
Mr. Chairman,
Yes. Question.
just from the terrain of the property, I would think something similar to option one would be his best option if he's gonna try to split. I wouldn't have a problem with flag lot in that situation. He has some practical difficulties here with the terrain.
And an
Practical
existing-
difficulties, and he's got an existing street/driveway, right?
Right.
So that seems like that fits the scope of the flag lot.
Yeah, I mean, you can do a flag lot either way, you know, with an existing driveway such as this, or a new flag lot with, you know, that's vacant, but, I mean, in this scenario, it definitely is impacting, really only one neighbor, and they're used to it already, cause it's there, so,
The driveway is the street and it's already there. right?
Yes, right. And there's no possibility for future subdivision, because there are wetlands behind him. So we don't have to worry about, conceptual planning of the region or the neighborhood. It's fairly built up around him.
Plus, if you go with anything else, it'd be quite expensive. Even to put that driveway he's got in there right now, it would be pretty expensive to, and if you eliminated that, it wouldn't really
It'd be
make
pretty
sense.
pointless to try to cut in on the driveway.
Yeah. But I would think maybe this is the best plan on number one there. Like the planner says, it won't affect really anybody.
Well, when he applies for the CUP, the neighbors will have a chance to comment.
Yeah, and the decision could be made then.
Right, that's when the formal decision.
It's still
will
an
be
iffy
made.
thing, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah. But I think it's reasonable.
For clarity though, I mean, I guess my opinion is it feels like concept one fits the practical difficulties and existing street constraints. I think that's some of the information you're looking for, right?
Yes.
Right,
So if you say, okay, if I gotta pick 1, 2, or 3, 1 seems like you have practical difficulties. If we came back and said, sorry, the rules are the rules, go with number 2, then you'd have to come up with a new plan.
Yeah.
But I'm not speaking for the board. I look at it and say, I agree with Barry, 1 seems like there's practical difficulties, and Kristen said there's an existing street/driveway there.
Okay.
Right.
I don't think there's much more we can do. Just looking at this, so it's up to you, your decision, how you want to do it, if you want to,
Well, yeah, I want to proceed.
okay. You have to
I
work
just
with,
wanted, like I said, I wanted your guys, all your opinions and
Did you get the answers you're looking for? I mean, we're here to try to help you as well and help with what you guys are planning. That's,
I think we're all on the same page. To
Okay.
me, it's, that's the best option there is. The only thing I don't have is the 150 feet, so I have to do the flag lot. But, with the slope and everything, and I think it,
I have to be honest, if it affects anybody, it's going to affect you, because you're going to live right next to next to your pole building, was the neighbor's going to be going by all the time anyway, so.
and like I said, I'm planning on putting pine trees
Yeah.
all the way around, because I'm just thinking they might not want to be looking at my pole barn.
exactly.
So I'm planning on planting them all the way along here where they're not gonna see it. I mean, they'll see parts of it, but it's not like it stands out right now. I wanna make it as presentable as possible.
Okay, then, that's all we can do for you, and thank you for your time.
So do I,
You have to check with it.
so work with me, you could go ahead and have the survey work done, or line that up, and then
okay, so I'll just give you a call.
give me a call, and I'll get you the application, anytime, tomorrow's fine,
All right,
thank you.
thank you, everyone.
Good to meet you.
Thanks. Good night.
Okay, by the way, Barry, you're the vice chairman.
Okay.
You should be at the meetings on time.
Sorry about that.
The debate was
I
between
apologize
7
for
and
being-
7:01.
Okay, the next thing on the agenda, we're gonna open the public hearing, and the public hearing is a request for a conditional use permit for parking lot setback and conditional use permit for expansion of a motor fuel facility by Bill Superette Store Gas Station by Grant Rademacher family at 8077 Viking Boulevard. And there's several PIN numbers here. The first one is 20-33-25-44-0015. The next one is 20-33-25-44-0003. Next one is 20-33-25-44-004. The next one is 20-33-25-44-009. The next one is 20-33-25-44-0010. And the reason why all these PIN numbers is a combination of these in making one PIN number. Okay, Grant, or rather, first of all, before that, I gotta get things straightened out here. That's the description. Now we're gonna have a, this, presentation here by our planner, Liz Stockton.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So if you recall, this plan or a similar one came before you last spring. What you have before you is in a lot of ways like the previous plan. He's got all the details in place, some of which you hadn't seen previously, one being the engineering review on the design. So we are looking at mainly the addition of the 3-lane high-speed diesel pump island with the new driveway out to Nowland Boulevard. He has shown the connection between the new driveway and the City Hall parking lot, as was a requirement from Anoka County. And there's a few details to be worked out regarding not only the landscaping, but the grading and possible upgrade of that drainage pipe. There is a drainage pipe that runs along the property line down here, so it would be the north line of the Rademacher property in the park area. So the new connection to this parking lot will be crossing that drainage pipe. That's one thing to discuss. And previously, the Planning Commission had recommended that 1 tree be planted for every tree removed. And in the previous minutes, we had talked about 14 trees, and that's what he has shown on his landscaping plan. There was some discussion at City Council level about where those trees might go, with possible request for some escrow money to have the Park and Rec committee kind of research where those trees might best be placed. That had not been formally decided as of yet. So, a couple of things. I have looked at in more detail the signage on his new canopy, and that does meet the requirements of 20% of that canopy fascia. So the part that says diesel enter here, that is satisfactory. The fascia is about 3 feet high and 72 across. So one thing, he's got a 16-foot clearance under that canopy, and the ordinance requires 14, so that's fine. But the overall height is referenced under those motor fuel requirements as being an overall height of 18. So with the 16-foot clearance and the 3-foot fascia, he's actually got an overall height of 19, which I personally don't see as a problem, but we need to either allow that under this current CUP or ask him to meet that requirement of 18 feet. We can ask him in a moment what his reasoning is for the 16-foot clearance, and maybe he has a reason for that, given the truck sizes and such that we'll be using the diesel pump island. So with that, I think we'll just open it up for some discussion. And I'll give it back to you, Mr. Chair, if you'd like to let Mr. Rademacher speak.
Okay, next we're gonna ask the applicant, Mr. Rademacher, is there anything you wanna add to what you have here?
Mr. Chairman, thank you. A couple of clarifications. The canopy should only be 18 feet, and it should be 15 feet to the bottom deck, so that may be a typo on those plans. The 15 foot to the underbelly of the pan should be accurate, so changing that, I'll verify that and make sure that we comply with that.
Okay, great.
I have one question on the light request that says the lights need to be canister style. That's not something that we use anymore. We use an LED flat panel, so I would request that that be addressed and make sure that we get formal approval on that so that we're not changing something to meet the paperwork that we don't currently have. I'm here to address any questions you've got.
Mr. Chair,
Yes.
just want to ask a question about the LED flat panel. So that's flush up under the canopy?
Yes, ma'am, just like we have now.
Okay, and just shining straight down, so so in other words, see, that's, not shining outward, it's shining just straight down, which is what we want. So I wouldn't see, any problem or any, opposition there with regard to the rest of the ordinance.
Okay.
Mr. Chairman, on page 5, item number 4, it says canopy lighting shall consist of canister spotlights recessed into the canopy. And all I'm asking is that what we have at the canopy now is a flat panel, recessed LED fixture that has met all other city requirements. And I guess I'm just asking that what we have over there now is what we're asking to use in the future. Flat panel, flush with the bottom of the canopy. But it's not a spotlight, it's a, I can provide the nomenclature if someone wants it.
Okay, I'm gonna ask the clerk at this time if all the mailings and postings have been completed,
Yes.
okay? There's not much of a public here tonight, but
Is
a
it,
couple of committees.
is it diesel or is it DEF as well as diesel?
We'll have depth at one eye, and the depth tank will be above.
Okay.
Yes.
Does anybody in the audience have any questions they'd like to ask Mr. Rademacher? They're commission members, so, they're not commissioners, they're council members. Okay, let's go to discussion here by the, we got any discussion? I know that there's several things on the driveway he's got coming down through there. He wants to put a driveway in there. There's also about the runoff of the water is a concern. And also working with the city about moving our exit over on the road he'd put in there.
Get to the bar faster.
Pardon me?
Get to the bar faster.
Oh, okay.
Mr. Chair?
Yes.
I would just like to verify with Mr. Rademacher. So, the majority of the stormwater goes into the retention pond that you've created. And then it's connected to this ditch basically over along Nowland Boulevard. And then is that again go across to the Sperry Pond underneath, do you know, or?
What ditch, Ms.? Are you saying currently or with the new pond?
With the new pond, it looks like there's a pipe that goes underground over
To catch
to
basin
this
manhole
corner.
1.
Right, okay,
And that manhole exists now.
Okay.
And I believe that is what connects to your drainage pipe going out into the park land.
okay.
There's 2 catch basins there, one in, I believe it's called the right of way, and then one back in the green space a little bit. And, so our
Yep.
pipe is designed to come out of the east side of the pond and run over to that catch basin manhole 101.
Okay,
Whereas last year's plan, it went straight north out into the park and connected to a catch basin out there, which we thought would add, well, one of the discussion points was it would add more water and would cause the city to have to upgrade that pipe.
okay,
So we took the city's request and we diverted that water straight to the east to that catch basin.
thank you.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes.
I'd have a couple more questions, I guess.
Pardon me?
I'd have a couple of questions.
Go ahead.
Do you have any concept plan for what might ultimately happen with the gravel parking area, or not at this time, or?
Mr. Wagner, not at this time.
That's it.
Without sewer and water, we don't have any plans to develop
Okay.
it. Our signage that I proposed to Ms. Stockman included an improvement to the existing sign up there for the farmer's market, so we'll put new lenses up for that.
Okay.
And our plan is to just allow the city to use it for the farmer's market indefinitely at this point.
Okay. Sounds good. One of the things we talked about before, I guess, was trying to keep the trees that were on the city property. I guess I still see them shown as removed. I guess I'm wondering if they have to be removed or not. Some of them would have to be probably for the new driveway construction to this parking lot.
The grading,
Yeah, just because of the grading, because of not putting a wall there or something like that, with grading it down, you'd end up probably having to take those out. And I think that was where we came up with the lower number of trees, is that we thought about trying to save those on the city side. Some people only thought if we are gonna take those down, well, I guess I'd still be curious if we could try to save them, but I guess I don't know if that's gonna be very practical or not. Or if we just ask for a few more trees in lieu of, I think we're taking down closer to, we have to take down closer to 40 trees or something like that. Any other, you wouldn't plant anything else on the site, it doesn't look like, I didn't think.
Mr. Wagner, I believe our landscaping plan had 4 to 6 trees on our side around that pond.
Okay.
But having reviewed that with the farmer's market, obviously with the pond, that lot's gonna get decisively smaller or
Right.
remarkably smaller.
Right.
And I haven't spoken to Linda yet as to where those trees would best be kept out of their space. Trying to be, it's maybe work for the city and the farmer's market as best we can.
Sure.
As far as the city's trees, they've all been agreed to be being replaced wherever Marion and Crew want that.
Okay.
And we're fine with the escrow funds as well. I know that was a request, and I'm fine with the escrow, that's not a problem.
Mr. Chair.
Yes,
I know sometimes when you have a group of, evergreen trees like this, especially as old as these are, you take one down and then it's kind of been shaded all that time and,
Yeah, it
and the
doesn't-
others aren't next to it, aren't that healthy looking, if you take part of them down and part not. And I know, that's kind of what Mr. Rademacher commented on previously. To some degree, I guess I would have to agree with that. But that's just the landscape architect in me coming out, so.
but, I think I read something in there, if this driveway was put in, are you the one that's gonna maintain it then, this driveway out of there? Cause
Yes, sir, our property, we maintain it. Yes, sir.
you'll be maintaining it, okay?
Correct. We would maintain it to the city,
Where-
through that curve.
Where the city comes out,
And then the city's,
Yeah.
we don't want that liability of plowing the city's lot, but we certainly plow that entire driveway as our responsibility, just as it is in Andover and Dalton. Yes, sir.
okay? And the way I understand it, that you would absorb the cost of all that work, it had to be put out, extending the cities over to yours then?
Yes, sir. To
Okay.
connect to the city parking lot,
Yes.
the raised curb or the bituminous to get from your lot to
Yes.
our new driveway, yes, sir, we would incur that.
And the way I understand, you want the city to release so you can do some work on their property and make that feasible?
You have to review that with Ms. Stockman. I think there has to be some kind of an agreement like we have with the county right away. They give us a permit. I don't know what the city would require as far as a permit to work on your property.
Yeah, I'm guessing, we would review that with Attorney Rupee and ask him what he would recommend.
Okay.
We would likely have to get granted some easement as well then, for the access
Yeah, maybe so.
onto his property to have,
Well, if he agrees to maintain it, yeah, you're right.
I mean,
but-
just an
but-
access agreement, I
But just to
guess.
go out to Now Then Boulevard, right.
Chairman?
Yes.
Ms. Stockman, when we originally built out here, there was, we spent time developing a cross easement agreement amongst all the properties. Did that ever get recorded, and would that need to be amended to allow this kind of final completion over the number 5?
Yeah, it might, because, right, the intent was to go along Viking and then turn the corner, yes, yep.
So, and I think that document, the original portion of it was drafted 12 years ago when we moved up here, with us and the bank and whoever
Yes.
was west of there, so.
Right,
In
yeah,
other words, you're saying that street you would be putting in there, you would want to go through your property over to the bank and,
No, I'm just saying that we had to provide an agreement
Oh, okay,
that
okay.
between the other people that own that property, they would maintain the roads there.
Oh, okay.
We would maintain the road in front of our place, but we gave mutual agreement for customers
To
to
use it.
drive and use that property.
okay.
And I'm assuming we would need to do that with the city for this driveway.
right.
That's our.
Mr. Chair, yeah, the intent is for the connection to ultimately go all the way to 199th. So the frontage road is, coming up through here and eventually hooking
That's
up.
not gonna happen in many, many years.
Well, you have city property here,
Yeah.
the only thing that's really in the way now is this older building, so.
Okay, yes, Councilman Ringgold.
Sherry, I just want to make a comment on Mr. Rademacher's comment about where Mary wants to place the trees. I do have some concerns, but that'll be a decision that you guys, if you make a recommendation to the council, and the council as a whole will decide whether they see value in my thought process.
No disrespect,
And
I
I
thought you
don't-
were the liaison with Park and Rec, I thought that was.
But it still is not my, I
Oh,
am a
agreed,
liaison.
agreed.
but
He's
I
still
just
just
want-
one vote.
I'm not even voting on Park and Rec. I just don't want people that are listening to think that I have already I'm doing something that I shouldn't be doing, so.
Sure, I meant from previous conversations,
Yeah.
yep.
Okay, we still have to address the tree issue. I know this is a big thing you had, Barry, about the last time on the tree issue.
well, it's just a very mature line of trees there that are gonna be coming down.
How big a trees, in other words, where are we gonna replace them? Do they have to be replaced right in this park, or do they have to go somewhere or anywhere?
That's up for the Park and Rec to recommend or the city council to decide.
We'll have to wait for the for the recommendation from them then.
Mr. Chair,
Yes, Mayor.
so just to clarify, there's two things with the trees. What Commissioner Wagner's talking about is and I can interpret what you're saying, is there any way of saving any of the mature trees in this process? It's a separate issue. Mr. Rademacher has already said he will escrow money and let the city decide where the replacement trees will be. So there will be an exchange of one tree for one tree somewhere at the city's choice. And that money will be escrowed to make that happen. But I see Commissioner Wagner just saying, is there any way of saving any of these mature trees with the layout and the 3-foot setback that's requested? And I don't know if the lines are there to know that. But it is true, once you start cutting down some of those trees, there's a couple of them that are pretty nice in there, but most of them would be. We have to make sure that we're clearing away any of the sight lines
Yeah.
for the corner access there. And once you get beyond that, then there may be a couple towards the west that could be salvaged on the park side. I think that'd be about it.
Okay.
But there's two questions there, and the one I think has been very clear, that in this project, there will be money escrowed, depending on the city council and the park committee, to come up with the proper location for those replacement trees.
Okay. A question I got to ask you, Mr. Rademacher, is, are you gonna have that road you put through there, is that gonna be curbed so the water runs, how will the water run off in the road there?
Should be noted on the plans, Mr. Chairman, the north side of the road should, I believe is required to have a 6-inch curb and gutter. The south side is ribbon so that the road drains into our pond. I believe that's, I know it's small print, but I believe it is on, is that correct, Ms. Stockman?
That's correct, begin,
612 on the north, ribbon curb on the south.
Okay.
right.
You won't be able to drive over that curb then, even going into the area where the farmer's market's at there.
No. You can't
Not supposed
access
to.
across the
No, I know,
pond.
you know what I'm,
The only access to the farmer's market, Mr. Chair.
would be from that end, I realize that.
Yeah.
Down by the store down there.
And if you're aware, Mr. Chair, the farmer's market, currently, some people do park in the city parking lot and walk over
Yep.
to the farmer's market. I would anticipate that would still
Still happen,
happen.
but they wouldn't be able to drive over there at all, okay?
Potentially
And
gonna
they
happen.
can't now.
It's potentially gonna happen more because you're reducing the size of that farmer's market lot, right? So from a
Potentially, yes.
parking standpoint.
And according to Shane's report, the water's not gonna be a problem there. And you're gonna have a little holding pond over in yours there, right?
Not little, Chairman, it's fairly sizable.
You take up about half the lot, huh?
They may have to name a new lake in the, Lake Rademacher. It's a big pond.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes.
if I may ask one question. I didn't get a chance to read through the whole packet, but was it ever discussed who was gonna pay for vacating the south access off of our parking lot now?
It was discussed last time. I don't know if it's still part of your expense that you were talking about.
We have to build a turn lane, so that would be right across that entrance point. So I don't know if the jury's out, if it's a raised curb there yet. I believe it is a raised curb from, I think essentially this, where your sign is out here, I think it goes to a raised curb all the way down to that intersection.
Yeah, it ends, just before, well, yeah. I think it's out of the way of, plows, in other words, coming along the turn lane and now then Boulevard, so it is back a little, but
I think the county is concerned right now, or the only thing that we're waiting on from the county is the width of that turn lane, whether it's gonna be a 10-foot or a 12-foot lane, and I think that's what we're waiting on now,
Okay.
Mr. Chairman. But my understanding is it's a raised curb between the turn lane and the green space, and of course, yes, that's part of our improvement.
And just so we realize that eventually if, the county puts a curb up in the middle of the highway out there, it'll be right turn only if you go out that way, it won't,
Correct.
right, eventually it may be that way, right? But for the time being, it's gonna be, you can go either way, right?
Full access, correct.
But your truck traffic will be mostly going to the right then.
That's correct, yeah, south.
Do we have any more questions here to ask? Because this has been before us before, we thrashed over it pretty good the last time.
What's the projected start date of the project?
I'd like to service our callers. I'd like to do it as early as we can. If we can get in there in May, I'd like to do that.
Okay.
Be nice to have it done by the 4th of July.
We got any more questions to ask him?
no, sir.
Okay, I'm gonna ask the general public, and there's two council members out here, if they have anything to say. If not, we're gonna close the public hearing. And, make our recommendations on this we have before us. Yes, anybody wanna be brave and make a motion?
I'll make a motion to approve the conditional use permit.
Okay, with the conditions that the planner has and also the engineer?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Maybe we should specify a few additional conditions
Okay,
to clarify, what was said. One thing would be to get input from the city attorney regarding the easement agreement, the, frontage road connection and that agreement, the money escrowed for the trees and the ability of the city council to determine the location. The city, by recommending approval, is acknowledging, approval of Mr. Rademacher's grading plan. So the removal of all the trees in that vicinity, and then the replacement, as I mentioned. His agreement to pay for a raised curb along the park, eliminating the existing access, southerly access to this city hall parking lot at the time he's constructing the turn lane in that location. He also agreed to a 15-foot clearance under the canopy with the 3-foot fascia making an 18-foot overall height. And assuming you were okay with the LED lighting, the flat panel recessed into the canopy, as is the situation at the existing, with the canopy at the existing location here. I think that is it, unless one final thing maybe we need to talk about is that drainage pipe, and maybe we just leave that. The city engineer did draw attention to that pipe that I was mentioning along this property line, and whether or not that needs to be replaced. I know we had talked about it previously. It's not clear to me in reading the engineer's report and looking at the plans whether this new design from Mr. Rademacher for the stormwater will solve that issue. So I know that City Engineer Nelson is gone this week, so maybe prior to the city council meeting, I can get you more information in that regard.
Do you accept all these things she added on there?
That was a lot, but yes.
That's a lot, I'm sorry. I just want to be very clear,
She
so
wasn't
that's
clear.
the best way to go.
Yeah, I think it was a great summary, and I read through the plans this week, and my input.
Okay, we're open to a second. Somebody like to second this motion?
I'll second that motion.
Commissioner Pearl seconded. Any discussion? I think Liz covered it pretty clearly for our protection. And I'll call for the vote. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carried. There you go, Grant.
I got a diesel pickup and a 30-foot horse trailer. Get it in there.
Faster than I thought. Okay.
I know, that's gonna be good. It's hard to get in there.
I know. Troublesome.
Okay, we're gonna open the other, next public hearing. Next public hearing is a proposed subdivision ordinance amendment, section 10 of the city code to clarify the application of park and trail dedication fees to only newly established lots not exclusive of parcels with existing homes. We'll go to our planner and let her describe this to us then.
So we, many times when we review plats and lot splits, the issue comes up regarding park and trail fees. The way we've been applying the park fees is that in our actions, and what we actually require has been just for the new lots, not the existing lots with, that contain structures. So even though we're reconfiguring a lot, let's say you've got a 10-acre lot and you're splitting it in two, both lots are technically new lots, but we're only gonna be applying the park and trail fees to the net lots, the new lot, which is vacant. So I tried to word it to be clear. And then as I was reading through this section, on page 2, under item G, about halfway down, I did add, the city's Park and Recreation Committee shall review all plats and recommend to the city council that the land and/or cash contribution requirements for proposed subdivisions, upon consideration of the particular type of development, said committee may recommend and the city council may require larger or lesser parcels of land to be dedicated. If it is determined that present or future residents would require greater or lesser land for park trails or playgrounds. I know we've mentioned many times that we'd like our subdivisions to be reviewed by the Park and Rec Committee, and that is what they're there for. So I do concur with the idea that they assist you and make a recommendation to the city council. So if you agree with that, that's one change. And then on page 3 is where I was trying to clarify how the park and trail fees are applied. So the first statement, number 1, was already in there, which references that we apply the park and trail fees not only to lot splits, but also plats. And then I stated in subdivisions which contain an existing residence or principal structure where the subdivision of land results in the number of lots being increased such that new buildable parcels are created, the per lot cash dedication fees shall only apply to the net increase of lots and not the parcel which contains the existing residence or principal structure. And then there should have been number 3. In cases where a parcel is vacant or only contains an accessory building, farm structure, or a use to be demolished and redeveloped as part of the platting process, the total number of lots shall be subject to the application of dedication fees. So I'm wondering if that makes sense to you, if it sounds okay, or if you have any other suggestions.
So can you walk me through what, we talked about Jeff Anderson's lots that he was proposing to split, had one, would split it into 3. He has a
Right.
house on the one, so he would be assessed for 2 lots?
Correct. Yep, exactly.
And the fee is based on 10% of the value of what we think those lots are worth, or is it the straight $2,500?
Well, in his case,
lot.
we would not be asking for land, since our park plan doesn't show land or trails in the vicinity. And then, so in his case, right, we would ask for cash contribution.
Okay,
And that is the set fee that's in our fee schedule. That hasn't changed for quite a few years, although the council can update that on an annual basis.
so his contribution to the Park and Rec would be 5,000 because it's 2 lots.
Right.
Okay.
Yep, and that's based on, the addition of homes, that adds to the burden and the use of our park and trails. So that's where we come up with our, the fees that go into that fund. And those fees are specifically for that use. They can't be used for other things.
And The plan used to be that he'd have to only pay for one lot.
Well, no, the way the ordinance reads, he would have to pay for 3 lots.
Well, he's only gonna have 2 lots.
Well, no, he may split, if he splits 3,
Yeah, if he split 3, he'd have to pay for 3 then.
the way it reads now.
Yeah.
But the way we've been applying it is that we've only applied it to the 2 new lots.
Right.
So we want our language to match our actions,
Okay,
yeah.
okay. Is everybody okay with what Liz has got, or she's presented for us here? So we understand now you have to pay for that extra lot where you never used to. The way it was wrote was, you could interpret it either way, right?
Well, we were applying it the way that the city council wanted it applied, and now we're just matching that language to what we've been doing, so.
Okay, everybody understand
So
that?
is there a certain number of, like, if somebody wanted to develop like 80 acres, is there a certain number of lots where the city would require a park or playground area or not?
We go by our park plan in general. So we have what we call park search areas, which are very, overly large and kind of general. So then if a plat were to come in that vicinity, then we would evaluate, the terrain and whether it would fit into our park plan, where our trails might be, in relation to it, all sorts of things. So it could be decided at that time. We could take, whether we wanted a larger park or just a small park for a playground. And then, whether or not it abutted a lake or all sorts of different things. But if it were in the vicinity of that park plan, search area, then we would definitely talk in depth about it then.
There's no question we'd ask for trails, so if it was a big development like that though.
Oh, we could ask for trails.
Yes. Okay, is there any things that we'd like to add to this? Seeing none, we'll close the public hearing then. We'll have to punt it. Somebody'd like to make a motion to accept what our planner has presented here? I so move. Somebody like second it?
I'll second.
Commissioner Pearl? Moen, seconded. Any discussion?
I'd like to take my vote back from earlier today.
Okay, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? You girls know who I meant.
And we are both wearing glasses in your defense.
Yes, you
And
are.
we got blonde hair, I mean, it could get super confusing. I know,
Okay, let's see.
I like the blonde-ish.
What we'll do, we'll open the next public hearing. This is a proposed amendment to Chapter 1, Section 5 of the Nowland City Code Administration Enforcement to add language and procedure requirements regarding the issues of a letter to be sent to properties with a code violations or suspected code violations prior to issuance of an administration notice of citation. At this time, we'll ask our planner to present what she has.
So, Mr. Chair, this was brought up by the city council that wanted to look at ways to be friendly and more friendly and kind of gentle on property owners when introducing a possible code violation. So what we're doing is possibly adding this step where we send a letter that does not threaten the fines initially. So we're giving the landowners an opportunity to fix the problem before we actually go to the enforcement process, which is the notice, and the administrative notice has to mention exactly what the violations are and what the fines will be if they don't fix the problem. And then the administrative citation is what comes after the notice if the property owner has still not complied with the zoning or subdivision regulations. So, I had drafted the letter that's on the very last page, and they wanted you, the council wanted you to look at that. And then also, we needed to add some language to our administrative enforcement ordinance, which makes the first step in the process this letter. Now, there was some discussion about what do we call this letter. In another city that I work with, it's called a city code violation letter. Another possibility that Dan Lick suggested was an advisory letter, which basically, advises the property owner of a violation and gives him the means to avoid the formal process, citation process. So I kind of like that. We can talk about the title. But again, we're trying to have a friendly way of notifying the property owner that we received a complaint. And then a lot of times this letter acts as the first form of contact. We don't always have a phone number to call. Many times I will stop by a property to see if they're home, knock on a door. But you don't always like to surprise people that way either. So once they get the letter, I would meet with the property owner and we would first verify whether or not the complaint was valid, whether they do have violations or not, and then attempt to determine a plan of action for resolution of the issues. So not only what the property owner has to do to be in conformance, but how long it will take them. Or I usually phrase it like, how much time do you need? Because I want them to tell me how much time they need instead of saying, well, I'll give you 30 days. If they say, I don't know, well, then I usually suggest a time period. But, it varies a lot because of the, major or minor infractions, shall we say. It could be as simple as, like 2 cars that are inoperable versus 80, it would take obviously a lot more time. So if it's taken many years for problems to arise, it'll take typically several years to fix the issue. Anyway, so I did my best at trying to kind of put this all together and integrate it with what we had and what we're adding. So I'm very open to comments. And again, I think the 2 goals would be that we want the letter to be friendly and that I go on site and verify the complaint and then figure out a plan of action. And then we can at that time share we have a brochure that outlines our enforcement process, which at that time would just be informational, and we could share that with the property owners.
So, can I ask a question?
Mm-hmm.
So, if somebody complains about something, it's not verified whether there's a violation prior to sending a letter?
Well, we can't always see, in these properties. Unless we're there on site many times, if I'm able to drive by and see that they're in violation, yeah, that's easy. But, obviously we have big acreage, larger acreages, and it's sometimes not possible to see. Or, sometimes I'll call the complainant and ask them if I can go on their property to see the neighbor or whatever, that kind of thing.
Mr. Chair?
Yes, Mayor.
So for the commission, we need to have this in a public hearing, so people didn't want to weigh in on it. But the intention from the council standpoint is to be as collaborative as possible. And so even in the letter, I think we talked about At the end of the document here, there's a letter. Following items are suspected violations based on submitted complaint. It could even be possible violations. The idea is somebody complained, we're just looking to see if it really is a violation of city code. Rather than come in like some cities do with guns a-blazing, somebody complained and we're here to kick you around. We want people to be collaborative. If they didn't know, and somebody brought it up, your neighbor happens to be looking over it and say, hey, that's a problem. We want to collaboratively go in and say, yeah, it's a problem, here's the city code, you might not have known about it, and give them a chance to, in most cases, when it's brought to their attention, clean it up. Some people say, I really don't care. Some cases, it's a feud between neighbors, and they're just looking for something to pick a fight over, and they're using the city to.
Yeah, I
fight
guess
their
that's
battle.
kind of what raised my question, that you can't just go throwing complaints out the window just to try to get someone in trouble, but
What
like,
happens?
I think if you have a letter, it needs to be factual too and not so,
Well, the intention here is, somebody complained, we'd like to see if there's anything there.
right,
And you go there and say there's something there, then you work with a plan to clean it up. We step it up. It used to be, there was a complaint, we come in and tell you, here's the consequences if you don't do something.
yeah.
And so, we were intending to say, before we just say, here's the consequences and make it feel threatening, because somebody complained, you go in there and say, there's times, you go in and say, really, there's nothing there. Somebody was upset or somebody misinterpreted something. And you go in, or they say, I didn't know it, and it's cleaned up before Liz gets back to the office. But we're just trying to make it that way, so it's at least confrontational as possible. Some people want to pick a fight, and, the city's got lawyers for that too. But most people are just unaware. You moved out here to live in peace and quiet, and there's some ordinance you aren't aware of, and sometimes your neighbors point those out. And so we're trying to make it so that we have as few battles as possible.
So I'll pull the new card here, so is this like 20 times a year, 50 times a year, or a couple hundred times a year that we have to go investigate this and we have to send this letter out? Roughly
20.
20?
Once, yeah, I'd say 1 to 2 new complaints a month. Kind of, sort of, not even, I mean, sometimes, yeah, we kind of,
Yes, we've
sometimes.
got
I don't
lots
think
of
we had
carryovers.
any, maybe one in January. that's it.
Are they usually
Yeah.
fairly valid? I mean, are they usually actual complaints?
Yeah, I would say most of the time they're valid, or at least partially valid. And a lot of times, well, quite a few times, people are aware, yeah, I knew I was kind of meaning to clean that up, or, sometimes they just almost like a reminder, or to get them going, but, so it's all different situations.
I think the first paragraph's a little too nice. And I only say that because if you have specific things you're listing out, I mean, somebody's been notified regarding your property, we would like to work with you and resolve any potential issues. I mean, I would read that first part and just be like, oh, okay, well, it's not that big of a deal, and set the letter aside,
And that's what some people do. I do want to say that this will prolong our enforcement or resolution of certain issues. With some people, some people call you the day they get it. Yeah, let's just get it fixed. And yeah, other people are, will throw it in the recycling and wait till they get the next letter. So it's just a whole array of, different viewpoints. Well, the council intended it to sound friendly and less threatening than the actual administrative notice. So I guess.
If you think it sounds too friendly, that was our intention.
Okay.
We wanted to sound friendly to begin with.
Job well done.
Hey, word to the wise should be sufficient.
Yeah.
If somebody wants to ignore it, then they move up the ladder.
Oh, yeah, no, I have no problem with the letter, I just like to put that on record, but if you wanna get people's attention,
Hit 'em with the
sending them
dollars.
a hug probably isn't really the way to do it. But, I mean, I think it's a good thing, so.
Well, Liz, you were looking for input on the title. a city code violation or advisory, well, maybe a city code would get closer attention than advisory.
Or you could say a code advisory letter or a,
Yeah,
Where is the title?
right at the top.
Okay,
Yeah.
city code
What, the
compliance.
top of what?
oh, I'm sorry, it's in the,
In the blue.
on this page. on
Oh.
page-
I was looking at the letter.
I was looking at
To
the
me, it
letter.
seems like there could be a nice bold heading up here.
Yeah,
By the way.
and that's the way our notice is. So we still could, title this letter. If you want.
Somebody isn't gonna go to the code and look up what the letter they just got is. It just seems like it would be good right up here.
Okay.
Mr. Chair?
That's just my opinion.
Yes, Commissioner Pearl.
In reference to the letter that's attached to this, I guess I like that it's kitten paws out front. But maybe we could get that drop dead, no later than, make an appointment then, date up into that first paragraph to kind of give them a little more of a warning that, hey, we do mean something, we don't want it down here and kind of forgotten in the readings of.
If they get to that part.
If they get to that part, that's why I kind of want to move it up,
Yeah.
because by the time you got through the sections, you're so flared up, you're like, whatever.
Well, we can put it in red or something too.
I just was wondering if there's a way to word it and get it up towards the top. Get a little more notice there. And as far as the title of it, in our code reference, I guess, the advisory code violation, some sort, like something along that lines, is fine. I mean, code violation basically says, you messed up, here's your deal, offender, that's it. That's like a great way of saying it in the code for the city, I guess, but when it comes out to somebody that doesn't know they've violated something, it's gonna be, wow, what?
Gotta give the compliment sandwich. Be nice, tell them what they did wrong, be nice again, and then be done with it.
Thanks.
Well, is everybody satisfied with what's here then?
Okay, hold on. Will this letter refer to the procedure that will be in our codes or our ordinance?
We would include the, we reference here that you can look online at the full city code.
Yeah,
But I would
when-
include the pamphlet, the flyer, which does outline
The procedure.
the procedure.
all this that we're looking at.
Yes.
Okay, good,
Yes.
because, not gonna lie, when you go to look for something in this ordinances and these codes, you get lost.
It's hard to find, yeah. if
Unless
you're
you
not
know
used to it.
exactly where you're going.
Yeah,
It gets
yeah.
to be a lot.
Yes, I understand that.
Okay.
Is there anything else you need there, Liz?
Any other comments? We should maybe read through the language in the ordinance portion of it to be sure you like that. So should we go with, what do you like, the advisory code violation letter? Or is that too long?
Mr. Chair,
Yes,
for the
Mayor.
commission's consideration, maybe notification of potential city code violation.
That's good.
Notifying them there's a potential code violation.
That could be
That's bold letters.
on the top of the letter that's being sent to them.
Yep.
That works.
I like it.
That works.
Notification of potential city code violation?
Correct.
Yeah. Kitten looks.
Sounding better all the time.
Diplomatic.
And then keeping it in the ordinance as city code violation letter?
Yeah, I think that's fine then for how we have it. Okay.
Anything else?
So, upon receipt of a written complaint, The code compliance officer may issue either in person or by US mail this city code violation letter to a person suspected or known to have committed a code offense and or be the owner of the property on which a code offense is being committed. So the letter shall request a site inspection, require a response from the property owner, and a meeting time to be set by a specified date, up to 15 calendar days from the date of the letter. The letter shall contain a copy of the city's administrative citation program brochure, and at the site visit, a site inspection will be conducted to identify or validate any specific violations, and the infractions shall be discussed. An action plan shall be created with an agreed-upon completion date, which outlines specific infractions and how they will be resolved. So then that would be put in writing, and the property owner would get a copy of that. And so within that action plan, I would set a time period, or we would agree on a time period. Again, asking them how much time they need to complete it. The city can be fairly flexible in that. It is nice. The problem comes, of course, when they don't meet their deadline. Then you either give them additional time if you think they've made progress, or you move to the next step. So I'm on page 3 at the top under administrative notice.
Mr. Chair,
Go ahead.
Yes, Mayor.
just in that, Liz, right now, everything is violation, and in first paragraph there, you switch to code offense.
Mm-hmm.
So it makes sense, just keep saying violation throughout.
Oh, sure.
There's two instances there in that first paragraph where that's consistent with the rest. So.
Okay. So then under administrative notice on page 3, I just added that the action plan will become part of the administrative notice. If that were to be sent, I would add that action plan again, and then that they would be reminded, of course, what their agreement was. And again, including the brochure. And then I did add a paragraph that says, in cases where the code offense is of a serious nature or a situation such as health safety concerns warrant such, an administrative notice may be issued without first having issued a city code violation letter. After I reread it, it's hard to define what a serious nature is, so I'm wondering if we should just leave it related to health and safety issues, or how you would want that phrased. I mean, I do think some situations warrant just going to that step, and I guess we need to define if you agree with that, number one, and then if you do, in what cases.
Did you say you wanted that reworded there?
Well, yeah, do you feel that health and safety concerns, would warrant issuing of a notice right off the bat, to require the compliance? Or, especially if they're related to building issues, or, if it's a threat to anybody's health or safety would be the biggest issue that I see. For instance, something like, a gasoline tank leaking, or something that's gonna get worse if you wait another 4 to 6 weeks, or, you know what I mean, something like that. That is a environmental hazard, that kind of thing. I was just unsure how to say that.
Mr. Chair,
Yes, Mayor.
so wouldn't that typically be covered under this health and safety? And those are the things you need to respond to quickly.
Can you just add hazard, health, safety, and hazard? I mean, that has.
Environmental hazard.
Or
Yeah.
EPA. I mean, that's really what it's getting into, right?
Then do they get involved?
They can, yeah. We have had situations where they've been involved.
Who then takes over, them or?
Well, both. But yeah, they're become the predominant, yeah.
Would it suffice to say public hazard?
Yeah, public hazard. Yeah, that would be a good way to put it, I think. Public health and safety hazard or concern, or just leave it at hazard. Because health is definitely involved if you have contamination of your soil near a well, or definitely.
I mean, is it not okay to have something that the city's discretion? I mean, isn't that what it's for?
Yeah,
I mean, it's
definitely.
serious in nature. You would think that you don't have to outline every single situation.
No, that's where the discretion comes in. If you say
Right.
this is a public health or safety
Right.
hazard. I mean, it could be fairly broad if other people are gonna get harmed by it.
Right. That's what I'm saying, you don't wanna like categorize it too much either, so where someone tries to come back that it's not there.
Do you want to add in at the city's discretion? Because what is the definition of, somebody may not think a leaking gas barrel into a open pond is a big deal.
Well,
it's like, well, is that, we may think it's serious, but they may not, so then you get into a debate, so it's like, hey, it's the city's discretion, it's a health and, we believe it's a health and, safety concern, we're elevating it up and we're
Right.
skipping skipping a few steps here in the process.
Mr. Chair?
Yes.
Yeah, I would recommend adding something like at the discretion of the code compliance officer, because that can be me, it can be Corey, it can be Andy, the building official. So there's, several people that could make that happen. Or if, Andy sees something at an inspection or whatever. And I do like adding public health and safety concerns or hazards.
I guess I would steer, sir, Chairman,
Yes, Commissioner.
I would prefer to see it be steered away from the hazard part. Because at this point, we're still trying to confirm it, once you're still sending out this letter, because this letter is coming out in lieu of the, what are we calling this thing again?
This letter would be void though, if there's a big problem, they would skip the letter.
No, they would skip the code violation letter and they would go right to this administrative notice, that's what I'm saying, that,
Oh, right.
that this is a concern still haven't verified at this point. Correct?
Right.
Wouldn't it be
Okay.
verified though if somebody was out there as a compliance officer?
Well, yeah, most likely, this would be a case where we'd see something that was a concern. Right.
I guess parking a truck would never be a hazard to anybody.
Right,
Parking
but that would go
truck.
through the normal.
Yeah,
Yeah, no, I don't think a parking violation would not.
unless it was a sewage truck or something.
Leaking, right, yeah.
That has happened.
Yes,
And that has happened where the guy decided to unload it in the local pond. And he's
No, that hasn't happened for weeks now.
he's still operating. But the city is at fault in a lot of these cases because we let them build big buildings on small lots. And then they start a business there and you cannot get a conditional use permit for a business on a lot that's less than 5 acres. And we shouldn't be enforcing it, but we don't.
agreed.
We're definitely at fault. But the reason for it was, number one, we were financing our building department by the amount of permits that we were issuing. One of our council people at the time thought it was a real good deal because the more revenue we got, the better, but he didn't realize what he was creating. Mess.
Just to clarify, that was a board member, town board member, not a council member.
Yes, that's right. Yeah. And it could have been a town board member and a council member too.
It could be,
Yes.
but at the
Okay.
time it was a board member.
Okay, let's go on here, stay on this, on the subject here. Is there anything else that we should be helping Liz with wording on this?
Give her a bigger axe.
Give her a big raise.
How about a little code violation hat?
I have a badge.
Oh, perfect. I'm not even jealous.
If there's not, we'll close the public hearing. Anything else you want to add here?
Yeah, that was it, just those 2 pages.
Okay, we'll close the public hearing. Now we'll act upon on all these things that Liz wrote down. I don't know if we want to read it all back to us or
No, I think this seems fairly well defined.
okay. Would anybody like to make a motion with the things that, corrections we made to it? To accept this,
Mr. Chair, just for your discussion, I'm a bit of a nitpicker, but, because I was looking at the change from offense to violation. And I think the proper use of offense is on page 7, subsequent violations. Each 7-day period when a violation continues to exist on property shall constitute a separate offense. I think in the other applications, it really should read, if you do a search for it, the code offense, it really is a code violation. We're talking about, it's not an offense to the code, it's a violation of the code. The offense is the incident itself, and so it's a new offense. So properly read in 157, but the other, I really think should be more accurately reading violation. We're saying a violation or multiple violations of the code. And the whole is an offense. Nitpick, but it's a little more consistent language. And then at least it's consistent between a violation and offense throughout the document. If we're gonna change it, this would be the time to.
Okay,
you agree with that then, Liz?
that's fine.
Okay. Public hearing is closed, now it's up, make a motion to accept this with the corrections of the,
I have a question.
yes, Commissioner
So
Pearl.
based on what you just said, Mayor, are you saying that we should be referencing all the times it says code offense as code violation instead throughout this whole entire section then?
Except until you get to 157.
Oh, that's what you're, okay, and that's what, so we've got quite a few spots where it needs to be changed.
You just have to do a word search on it.
Find replace.
Yeah, okay, because I'm seeing it like everywhere.
Right.
I was just like, am I understanding this correctly? Okay.
Okay, we have a motion on the floor to accept this with the corrections.
Is there a motion or no?
Huh?
There hasn't been,
Ask
right?
for one.
Okay, sorry, I thought I missed it.
Okay, do we have a motion to,
I'll make a motion to approve this with the corrections as noted, as we've discussed.
Commissioner
Okay.
Moore made the motion. Did somebody second it?
I'll second the motion.
Commissioner Wagner seconded it. Any further discussion? Seeing none, we'll call for the vote. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Okay, we have item 6 here, that the guy that was gonna run for the interview tonight couldn't be here, so this is gonna be put off until next month. Okay, if anybody else wants to apply between that, they could be added to it. Okay, they'd be added to it. And also, I was talking with Corey, the next month, we're gonna be looking at the, what was it, the City of Nowden's Planning and Zoning Commission policies on commission structure, meeting order, and general procedure. So they'll probably in our packet the next time, so look it over real good. We're supposed to do this once a year or whenever need to make changes to it. So read it over so you're very familiar with it. Okay, I'm ready for the last motion.
I'll make a motion to adjourn.
Okay, Commissioner Moen.
I'll second it.
Okay, Commissioner seconded. So, David, aye. Okay, short meeting. I thought we'd be here until 10:30.
Everybody was very efficient tonight, that was good.